sure. So, well, hey,
Yeah.
it's great to meet you. Thank you for taking a minute
Hmm.
out. And I want to begin our conversation with surviving the last 3.5 years. How did you get through
Yeah.
the pandemic, and how did it subsequently change you?
Oh gosh. Well, during the pandemic, like the height of it, I had just finished up teaching because my whole background is in education and I taught for a year and I was like, man, this is really hard. So I ended up moving to Chicago for grad school, like I don't know, summer of 21. And I'm like, this could either be a really good or a really bad mistake. I can't really tell right now because everything's shut down and
Yeah,
whatever. So I mean, I'll be honest, there's a lot of isolation for sure, and like trying to figure out what to do with myself and how to meet people, especially if you're in a city as a young professional or a student, you kind of have to get creative.
yeah,
Um, but at the time, I met my now boyfriend there, and so it was kind of good exploring the city and getting more of like a locals kind of perspective on things, and just kind of traveling and getting creative. So it was a combination of that and a lot of reading for for school and for pleasure, but just honestly it was a lot of just trying to keep my brain occupied since there
yeah,
wasn't a whole lot that I could do like physically. Like I lived on this great street where there were like all these coffee shops and places, but I couldn't go inside because they were all
yeah.
closed and it was such a bummer, and it was like winter and I'm freezing. But just a lot of reading and a lot of exploring Chicago with my boyfriend for sure. Yeah, just
Yeah.
doing getting creative where I can.
Yeah. So where did you go to school in Chicago?
I went to Loyola.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. And for the first year or so, it was a year and a half for me, but for the first year, it was all online. And I'm like, okay, well, I guess this was kind of a crapshoot. I guess I could have done this from home, but at the same time, it's like I've been living in my parents' basement. I was like mid-20s. I'm like, I gotta get out of here, man. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I went to Loyola, and then yeah, so it was good. I don't. It all kind of is a blur just because of COVID, but
Yeah,
it
it
was
really
good.
is. Yeah, the
I
whole
don't,
thing. Yeah.
yeah.
It's interesting. I actually hit a crossroads in my life, and I took the
Mm,
GRE, and I was going to
uh-huh.
go to DePaul, and I
Oh
was
yeah.
all wanting to go up and become a college professor. And then I
Wow.
realized how much time and education you have to go through for the amount that you make and just the whole
Mm,
thing. And I was like, is this really what I want to do? But I was
yeah.
almost at that point where I was going to do that. So it's interesting. And Chicago is a
Wow.
wonderful town.
Oh, it's awesome. I mean, now that it's open, yeah, it's great. There's
Yeah.
all kinds of stuff to do.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And it's
So
weird because, oh, go ahead.
no, 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 you're good.
No, I was gonna say it's weird because I'm from Missouri, and
Yeah.
it's like there's the Ozarks, and it's different because when you're in Chicago, you got the Great Lakes, and it's like people be like, let's go to the beach for the weekend. I'm like, oh yeah, I forget that's like a thing, because
Uh-huh.
I don't really go to the lakes or anything, because they're always like
Yeah.
super crowded, but it's like, oh yeah, I guess people do that here. Yeah. They
Yeah.
go to the beaches and stuff.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. It's a different mentality. So
Yeah.
let's get to the heart and soul of what you do for a living. I'm going to put you in
Sure.
front of a bunch of third graders at career
Hmm.
day. And one of the
Hmm.
kids asks you, what do you do for a living? How do you answer them?
I help people make books.
Okay.
And I help do that in a couple of different ways. I help people with marketing their books and getting people interested so that they want to buy it. And I help people with um, the ways that they want to publish their books. So, because there's a lot of different ways to do it. It's such an opaque industry. I feel like that there's not a whole lot of clarity for new writers in that space. So I help break those different pieces and elements down and kind of help people figure out ways that they want to publish their book. So I just work with books in a lot of different ways, and
Yeah.
I help the authors who make those books.
So let's go back to your roots in Kansas City and
Hmm.
how you got to this point where you are in the publishing industry. How did all of this,
Hmm.
the seeds become who you are today?
Yeah, it's a combination of personal and professional experience. So when I was done with teaching, a friend of mine worked at a book marketing agency, and she said that she was a book launcher, and I had no idea what that was. And at the same time, I was trying to publish my own book. It's a coming of age memoir about my experience living and working in Yellowstone National Park as a housekeeper. So there's already a lot of stories in that one as well. But it ended up uh, being that I got that book marketing job with my friend, and it was really interesting because what I didn't know for my own book, I learned being on the job. And then what people didn't know on the job, I could contribute through any personal experience I had with writing my book. So it was very like symbiotic. And so it was kind of a combination of those two things. And then as I was learning more about the book business and the book industry, I just realized and learned how there's just so many things that people just don't know. So at the same time, I started blogging and making videos about the things that I was learning to benefit other writers who might be trying to get published themselves. And so eventually that's kind of like what I built my current brand around, and I'm, starting to grow a little bit. And it's just things that people don't know about the book business, but publishing specifically, because I feel like there's a lot of resources and conversations around how to write a book. But then
Yeah.
when people get there, it's like, well, now what? And so
Yeah.
I want to be the person who's kind of like at that next checkpoint that's like, okay, obviously you want to get published. Here's kind of like what your options are. So I guess it's just like a combination of things. But yeah, it was the pursuit of my own book and then getting a job in book marketing.
Yeah. Yeah. Like two birds with one stone. So
Yeah.
what was the first book that you read growing up that either made you want to read more or become a writer?
The first book, honestly, the first one that came to mind was Dr. Seuss. Um, but it was a lot of my like dad's old Dr. Seuss books. So like he was reading me these books, that had to have been like, I don't know, 40 years old or something at the time. And it had like that old book smell.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was always an experience, if I was being read to by someone, or if it was like, the famous scholastic book fairs, or, exploring my own interests with books. But I think it was just growing up and having a lot of experiential storytelling with different adult figures in my life that kind of made it seem pretty interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So who's been a hero for you in your life?
You know what? I would say a lot of different nonfiction authors, but the first one that comes to mind is Dr. Maya Angelou. I don't
Yeah.
know what it is. I just connected with her really, really well. And I know that she's not with us anymore, but when I was in college and trying to like get a clue for like who the heck I was and who I wanted to be and grow into and et cetera, and all that stuff that comes with being in your early to mid 20s, I I really liked her sort of like authentic wisdom that she had, and just kind of the strength and forcefulness that was balanced with a lot of these very like soft, softer, more intimate kind of messages. And so
Yeah.
I really, really just connected with her. So if I could meet anyone or talk to anyone, like I would definitely want to have a conversation with her for sure. She's so wise.
Excellent. So let me ask you this, in your profession now, what
Hmm.
is the drive? What gets you up every day? What gets you to not only to do your job and to help people get published, but to evolve as your own person?
Yeah, I would say I would say just what really motivates me is spreading the message about, I've just been calling it author education. And it's just like training people, aspiring authors, and educating people on here's what you got to know if you want to get into the book business. Because I really, really like seeing when I share something, or when I show someone something or explain something, and something kind of clicks and it's just like, oh, I had no idea, or like, oh, that made sense. And maybe that's just my teacher roots coming out or something. Like that's always like the golden moment that every teacher wants to see, of like, oh yeah, little Jimmy finally got it.
Yeah.
But this time it's just more with adults in their very special messages, whether they're nonfiction or whether they're fiction or whatever. Just kind of, I really like and enjoy seeing people kind of become a little more equipped into an industry that isn't always seen as a business, and
Yeah.
just kind of like arming people up and letting them know, like, it's great that you want to write a book. Books are amazing. However, these are the different barriers that you have and things that you need to know if you want to do it. So just, I guess, again, kind of balancing that softness with some of that like stronger kind of wisdom. Not that I'm comparing myself to Maya Angelou, but
Right.
I would say
Yeah.
that's probably the big motivation for sure.
So of this adventure of helping people get published, what's been
Mhm.
your best success story so far?
Um, so my business is very new. And I'm still trying to get it off the ground in full transparency. But I will say that as I've been sort of gradually building and developing this kind of brand that's still in the baby stages, I've at least seen that there's been a lot of interest in it. And that is definitely what keeps me going, and seeing that people benefit from this. So I mean, past clients that I've worked with have just been really, really great. They've been, C-suite executives, they've been thought leaders, they've been, experts in their industry, whatever it is. Cause I mostly do nonfiction. I love nonfiction. Not to say that I haven't worked with fiction either, but just helping people learn some of those tips and tricks that come with self-promotion, because that can be really uncomfortable for very private people who like to tell stories and spread a message that's maybe separate from them or bigger than them, or that will benefit other people. But I really, really enjoy seeing people kind of grow into themselves and their message a little bit and have that be amplified through books. Because if it benefits other people and you get to exercise your thought leadership a little bit, and it's in the form of a book, like there's so many win-wins all around. And I love supporting people with that. It's just so special. It's so special to them and other people, because if you're in a specific niche or market or whatever, like the more specific you get, the more valuable you become, and you
Yeah,
can become an inspiration to other people. You can you can just do a lot of good stuff with a book, whether fiction or nonfiction. But I like nonfiction, it's more of my jam. But there's so many good benefits all around that hit people both personally and professionally, for sure.
absolutely. Yeah, the
Yeah,
ripple's huge. So
exactly.
of all of the things that you've done so far, what are you the
Mhm.
proudest of?
I would say writing my own book, for sure. Because it's like, if you're going to talk the talk, you got to walk the walk, and I want people to, whoever, whether it's a conversation or a client or whatever, I want people to, you know, I want to feel like I can kind of be taken seriously. Like, oh, okay, she's not just like trying to throw some fluff at me or something. Like, she's actually done it. Like, she knows a thing or
Sure.
two. Um, but I think what's really special about writing any kind of book, no matter the length, is that you're proving to yourself that it can be done,
Yeah.
which means that you're beating out a whole lot of imposter syndrome. You are beating out a whole lot of self-doubt. You're kind of getting out of your own way a little bit. You're maybe kind of stretching your boundaries a little bit and kind of becoming a better version of yourself, like growing into like the older sibling version of yourself. That's kind of how I always
Yeah.
think about it, yeah. But I think the book was the first time that I kind of proved to myself that, I can do big things if I want. And it's not just about me, but other people too, who want to write a book and who can do it. It's like, oh, shoot, this is pretty great. Like, I could get used to this. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So obviously, as someone that's very curious and travels a lot,
Yeah.
if you had the chance to get into a time machine and go back in time and see one event
Mhm.
in human history, where are you going?
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. It's a great question. Um, Holy cow. There's
It's
so many
like
different ways I could take this.
it's like the beginning of the Big Bang show. It's like all of those images are just,
Exactly.
just flying.
Exactly. Exactly. I mean, I don't know. I think I'd want to see this actually isn't the answer that I thought I would pick, but I think I'd kind of want to see like the whole rise of the printing press, because I feel like once
Yeah.
that kind of started, everything just sort of snowballed after that. Not,
Mhm.
I mean, I'm sure some of my historical knowledge is going to be inaccurate. I wish I was a history buff, but I'm not so much one. But I think it'd be really cool to see that, because I think I read this article or something a while back that was like, people used to be employed to like write copies of books or whatever by hand, and they were
Yep.
called scribes, right? Yeah. And then the printing press came around and you're like, holy cow, like we could like totally cut our work in half, or more. And just kind of seeing that revolutionize the book space. Anything that has to do with impact on the book space, I just geek out about
Yeah.
so hard. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that would be really, really cool to just see all that take off.
Yeah, that's fascinating. That's a great answer. So everyone has a perception of you, family,
Hmm.
friends, your clients, everyone that knows you, but you run the show. What's your
Uh-huh.
perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Um, I think I know that my perception of myself is yeah, like the way that I feel about myself and the way that I see myself, I know are going to be kind of two different things, because you have that like inner monologue, inner dialogue, and then you
Yeah.
kind of have like what you present, right? Kind of like what you were saying. I would say that if I had to take an outside look at myself, I would probably think that I maybe had it a little more together than I think I do.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I would say that I don't think I always give myself enough credit, but I would say that I'm put together. I'd say that I have a direction, which is really good. I like I'm someone who kind of likes knowing like what I'm working toward.
Yeah.
And I would say that When I was younger, I used to, like, I don't know, when I was probably 12 or 13, I used to envision this like kind of big sister version of myself. And I would visualize this person like walking down a city street, just kind of like owning the sidewalk, you know? And
Yeah.
I feel like I'm kind of closer to that version of myself. And it just kind of big sister version. I feel like I'm kind of growing into the person that I want to be. And I think yeah, I think I have a little more confidence than I think I do, I guess, if that makes any
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So if
Yeah.
anyone wants to pick up your book, learn more about you, reach out, get their book published, how can they do that?
Can you repeat that one more time? I think my
Oh,
camera
sorry.
went
No,
weird.
you're good. So if
Yeah.
anyone wants to pick up your book, anybody wants to get their book published, learn more about you, reach out to you, how's the best way to do that?
Best way to do that. Yeah, I would say think about how much value you're placing on your book. Think about what you want this book to do for you and others. And think about what your version of success looks like with that book. And then from there, I feel like that'll kind of better inform the best publishing path for you. So think about yourself and like what your goals are and how that's going to affect other people. And then from there, you have three options. You have traditional publication, self-publication, and hybrid publication. And I would say to absolutely do your research on each of those, because with traditional, there's a lot more credibility and prestige that comes with it, but it is definitely the longer game. So
Yeah.
it's going to test your patience. But if you're willing to trade that for credibility, great, go that way.
Yeah.
For self, if you just want to like prove to yourself that you can do this thing, you want to just like cut the timeline down in half, go for self-publishing. And if you want to do hybrid, like assisted self-publishing, consider that as well. Like I would say whatever you do, consider your values, what your goals are, what success looks like, and which publishing path matches up best for you. It's like taking a personality test, you know, it's like
Sure.
see which job best fits your personality kind of thing that we all
Yeah.
used to do in school. I'm
Yeah.
almost kind of thinking about it like that.
Okay. Excellent. So how can people pick up your book?
They can find my book on Amazon and my book's website, thefinerthingsclub.life. It's available on Amazon, it's Barnes & Noble, Target, a couple other different places, Apple Books, Kindle, etc. And if you go to that website, you get a bunch of bonuses if you want your reading to be more experiential, kind of like what we were talking about earlier. But yeah, that's available for anyone, wherever you choose to buy your book from.
Excellent, Lauren. This has been wonderful. Thank you so much for your story. Thank you for your time. Have a great new year.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me. You as well.
Thank you.